Our movie today begins with the original Spider-Man, known as Peter Parker, who introduces himself as a kind and friendly person who loves helping others. We see Spider-Man's superpowers and how he's constantly able to save his city. On the other side, we meet a young man named Miles who is sitting and drawing stickers to paste around the streets. At that moment, his mother comes to ask him to get ready for school. We learn that Miles lives with his father, a police officer named Jeff, and his mother, Rio. A bit later, we see Miles walking through the street where his old school is in Brooklyn. He runs into some of his old friends who greet him warmly and tell him they miss him. He continues sticking his drawings on the walls and street signs, and just then his father, Jeff, sees him and comes by in his police car to pick him up for school. He tells him to stop putting up those stickers. While they're talking, they hear a news report on the radio about recent incidents, but as always, Spider-Man managed to save the day. At that moment, we realize that Jeff doesn't like Spider-Man. He thinks that he and the rest of the police force work harder and fight crime every single day. Miles tells his father that he wants to go back to his old school in Brooklyn because the new one feels too strict and formal, and he doesn't like it, but his father refuses. When they reach the school, Jeff says goodbye to his son and tells him he loves him. Miles doesn't know how to respond. So Jeff grabs the car's speaker and loudly tells his son again that he loves him, asking him to say it back, embarrassing Miles in front of his new classmates. Miles tries to adapt to the new school, attends classes all day, but ends up being late to the last class, which is about the multiverse. When the teacher asks him why he's late, Miles replies that time is relative, that maybe he's not late, but they arrived early. His classmates laugh at his answer. He then sits next to a beautiful girl named Gwen, and it's clear he likes her from the first moment he sees her. At night, Miles visits his uncle Aaron. We learn that his father doesn't like Aaron because he's involved in criminal activities. Miles tells his uncle about how he likes Gwen, and Aaron advises him to impress her with something unique so she'll notice him. Later, Miles fails a test, scoring 0, and asks the school principal to expel him. But she tells him she knows he failed on purpose because it's a true or false test, and it's almost impossible to get a 0 even with your eyes closed. She asks him to write an essay about himself. The next day, Miles goes with Uncle Aaron to an abandoned place under the subway so he can freely paint graffiti on the walls. He happily starts drawing. During that time, a strange, glowing spider crawls onto his leg and hides in his clothes. After he finishes painting and prepares to take a picture of it, the spider bites him. The next morning, Miles wakes up feeling strange. His body has changed and his clothes feel tighter, but he doesn't pay much attention and heads to school. There, he starts hearing weird voices in his head. He sees Gwen again and tries to talk to her just as his uncle taught him. But when he puts his hand on her shoulder, it sticks, and he can't pull it off. Gwen has to cut part of her hair to free herself. Miles walks out to find everyone staring at him, and he feels extremely embarrassed. When a security guard calls his name, Miles panics and runs away. He doesn't understand what's happening to him. He jumps out of a window and discovers he can now climb walls like a spider. Still confused, he's shocked by his new powers and realizes he now has the same abilities as Spider-Man. He goes to his uncle's place for help, but finds he's not home. So he returns to the place where he was bitten. There, he finds the same spider, and when he touches it, strange radiation begins to affect him. Suddenly, he hears a loud noise and follows it to find Spider-Man fighting Kingpin. Unexpectedly, Miles finds himself in the middle of the battle. He doesn't know how to react or even how to escape. When he tries to get away, he falls from a very high place and screams until Spider-Man hears him and saves him at the last second. Spider-Man senses a strange connection between him and Miles. He realizes that Miles now has the same powers and tells him he's going to become Spider-Man too. But Miles refuses, saying he doesn't want these powers. Spider-Man tells him he has no choice, reassures him that he'll be okay, and promises to help. Then, Spider-Man rushes off to destroy the massive machine before the temporal rift closes. But suddenly, the villain Kingpin appears with many monsters from other dimensions. They're using a particle collider to open portals to 5 different timelines. During the battle, Spider-Man accidentally falls into the collider's core and a huge explosion happens. A massive explosion occurs. Once things calm down, Miles rushes to check on Spider-Man, who appears severely injured and exhausted. Spider-Man asks Miles to work with him and hands him a key. He explains that the key must be used quickly to destroy the machine, or else everything and everyone they know, including Miles' family, will vanish from existence. As Miles walks away, one of the villains finds Spider-Man's mask and kills him. When Miles witnesses this, the villain orders the others to hunt him down. A huge chase breaks out through the subway and the city streets, but Miles manages to escape and returns home, where it's clear his father, Jeff, had been extremely worried about him. Miles then asks his father if he still hates Spider-Man. His father responds that he hasn't changed his mind. Soon after, news of Spider-Man's death spreads everywhere and people mourn his passing deeply. Miles visits a costume shop and buys a Spider-Man suit, even though it's way too small for him. He wears it under his clothes and attends a press conference held by Peter Parker's friend, Mary Jane. After that, he gathers all the Spider-Man comic books he can find to learn where Peter used to train. He climbs to the top of a building and attempts to leap off, terrified. When he jumps, he fails to use his new powers and crashes to the ground. Meanwhile, the key that Spider-Man gave him to disable the collider breaks, leaving Miles feeling defeated and hopeless. He decides to visit Peter Parker's grave and apologize for failing to stop the collider and for breaking the key. Suddenly, a stranger appears behind Miles and grabs him. Miles panics and attacks the man until he blacks out. When he wakes up, he discovers that this stranger can also shoot webs and looks just like Peter Parker, only older. At that moment, the police arrive. Miles quickly ties the man up and escapes with him. When the man regains consciousness, he finds himself tied up in a secret underground place owned by Miles's uncle. Miles interrogates him, wanting to know who he is and why he resembles Peter Parker. The man reveals that he is Peter Parker, but from another dimension, another version of Spider-Man. Miles begs him to train him, but when Peter tries to swing, he fails. His body is weak from being in the wrong universe. Still, Peter decides to leave and return to his own world, but Miles pleads with him, saying he needs training to defeat the villain known as Kingpin. When Peter hears that name, he changes his mind and agrees to work with Miles to destroy the collider. After giving Miles some basic training, they both head to a lab to access the main computer. Peter hacks in and opens the system. Miles follows him in and, to his surprise, discovers a new power. He can turn invisible. Suddenly, a scientist walks in, thrilled to see Peter alive. Peter distracts her so Miles can use his new power to access the computer, but Miles doesn't know what to do, so he grabs the computer and runs. The scientist then reveals mechanical arms and grabs Peter by the neck, and a massive fight breaks out. Peter and Miles manage to escape into the forest, but she chases them down, destroying trees along the way. She corners them and retrieves the computer. Suddenly, a girl in a Spider-Man suit appears, fights off the scientist, and takes back the computer. When she removes her mask, it's revealed to be Gwen. She explains that she was also bitten by a radioactive spider 2 years ago and lost in the multiverse, arriving in this world a week ago. In her universe, Peter Parker also died. She had been disguising herself as a regular girl so no one would recognize her. Now Miles is joined by 2 Spider-Men from alternate realities. They leave together and the story shifts to Kingpin. He stands before a photo of his wife and remembers the time Spider-Man almost defeated him. Back then, when his wife and son discovered he was a villain, they fled and died in a car accident. Kingpin, overwhelmed with grief, blames Spider-Man for their deaths. His assistant arrives and tells him that she saw 3 Spider-Men, meaning the collider is working and the dimensions are overlapping. Back with Peter, Miles, and Gwen, they arrive at Aunt May's house. She is touched to see Peter, but quickly realizes he's from a different universe. Peter apologizes for his past and shows her the broken key. Aunt May sympathizes and takes them to Peter's old lab, where they can build a new key. The lab is filled with all the equipment Peter once used. Gwen watches in awe. Meanwhile, other Spider-Men from different dimensions begin to arrive, all hoping to return to their own worlds. Miles tries to use his powers but can't control them, and he becomes discouraged. He visits his uncle's apartment and leaves a message saying he's overwhelmed and needs to talk. Suddenly, Kingpin's assistant enters, searching for Spider-Man. At that moment, Miles quickly hides and makes himself invisible. The assistant gets very close to Miles but doesn't see him. Just then, the assistant receives a call from Kingpin, ordering him not to return without killing Spider-Man. After the call, the assistant removes his mask, and Miles is shocked to discover that Kingpin's assistant is actually his uncle, Aaron. Miles tries to escape while still wearing the mask. Aaron chases him, unaware that the person he's chasing is his own nephew. Eventually, Miles manages to get away. Back at Aunt May's house, all the alternate versions of Spider-Man are still gathered. They finally manage to build a new key to replace the one that was broken. Miles arrives and tells them what happened, that his uncle turned out to be Kingpin's assistant, and expresses how shocked he is. Suddenly, Dr. Octopus crashes into the house with her mechanical arm, starting a fierce battle. She tries to take the new key, but Miles's friends manage to toss it to each other while fighting. Eventually, the key ends up in Miles's hands. His uncle chases after him to take it, still unaware that it's Miles behind the mask. After a long chase, Aaron finally catches Miles. Just as he's about to finish him off, Miles removes his mask and reveals his identity. Aaron is stunned to realize that Spider-Man is actually his nephew. He hesitates to harm him, but just then, Kingpin appears and kills Aaron. Kingpin then grabs Miles and flies away with him to a distant location, trying to save him but fails. In his final moments, Aaron apologizes to Miles for letting him down, and for letting down Miles' father as well. He urges him to keep helping people, then passes away. At the same time, Jeff, Miles' father and the officer in charge of the area, arrives. He sees Spider-Man and tells him to put his hands up. As Jeff turns his back, Miles escapes and returns to his dorm in a state of intense anger and sadness. He sits down and cries. Suddenly, his friends enter to comfort him. Meanwhile, Jeff discovers his brother Aaron's body and mourns his loss. He tells the police that the new Spider-Man is a killer and must be arrested immediately. Back with Miles and his friends, they say their goodbyes and tell him he will remain in this world until he helps send them back to their universes and destroys the Collider. Peter asks Miles for the key and tells him it's too dangerous for him to come along to destroy the machine. He's not ready and can't fully control his powers, and his presence would put him in danger. But Miles insists on going, so Peter is forced to web him to a chair and take the key from him. Miles asks Peter when he'll finally be able to use his powers. Peter replies, "When you take your first leap of faith, once you truly believe in yourself." Peter then leaves with the other Spider people and heads to Kingpin's lab, where a celebration is being held for Kingpin's supposed victory over Spider-Man. All the guests are wearing Spider-Man costumes, making it easy for the group to blend in. At the party, Peter sees Mary Jane, the identical version of his former girlfriend who died in his world. He's visibly affected. Gwen notices and approaches him, encouraging him to pull himself together. He goes to talk to MJ and apologizes for not being there when she needed him, but she doesn't understand and walks away. Back to Miles. He remembers his uncle and, channeling his grief into strength, manages to free himself from the webs. He goes to Aunt May's, gets the tools and a new Spider-Man suit, puts it on, and leaps off a rooftop just as Peter once advised. At that moment, he unlocks his full powers and gains complete control. In the lab, Kingpin seals the place and orders his assistants to activate the Collider, causing a temporal disturbance across the entire city and randomly opening 5 different universes. The machine begins working, and Peter and the others rush to stop it. Peter climbs up to insert the key and shut it down. But Kingpin's assistant sees him and knocks his hand away at the last second. A huge battle breaks out. The assistant catches Peter and is about to kill him when suddenly her mechanical arm malfunctions. Miles is behind it, invisible, and joins the battle. He's incredibly powerful now, and everyone is amazed by his control over his abilities. Miles helps them fight the villains and takes the key. He starts controlling the beam and opens a portal for each of his friends to return to their own worlds. They say their goodbyes and leave one by one. When it's Peter's turn, Kingpin reappears. Peter refuses to leave, saying he has to stay and face Kingpin because Miles can't take him on alone. But Miles reassures him and insists he go back to his own world. He can handle it. Peter finally agrees, says goodbye, and leaves.